Thanks for joining me today. I'd like to ask you a few questions about title companies, the purpose of the title company, and also title insurance. Okay?
Sounds great.
All right, great. So, besides getting the buyer or seller to sign on the dotted line, what exactly does a title company do for the buyer and seller?
Well, a title company acts as a neutral third party.
Okay.
And we coordinate all aspects of the closing. Once you have an executed contract, we accept that contract, we deposit the earnest money, we do an examination of the title so that we're comfortable about issuing title insurance.
Okay.
We coordinate with the new lender, if there is one, with any surveys, homeowners associations, just any repairs that are being done. We coordinate having all those invoices in so that we can prepare the closing statement that's prepared in our office.
Okay.
And then we do handle the closing and the signing everybody up.
Right.
And after that happens, we coordinate with the lender for funding because they have to approve the closing documents and prove that everyone has signed the documents before they give us that funding permission.
Right.
And we receive all the funds. And once the funds are received from all the parties and everybody is signed and the lender gives their funding approval, we disperse all the funds.
Gotcha. Okay.
And once those funds are dispersed, then we record documents, and that's where the buyer title is then transferred to the buyer and the new lien or liens is created for the lender.
Right. Okay. And you do a lot of coordinating.
Yes, we do.
So whenever people are looking at that settlement statement with all those, what I call them to my buyers or sellers, is nickel and dime fees. That's not directly coming from you. That your charge as a title company is just that, $200 to $500 depending on the title company that's in there to coordinate all of this. And you're
Correct.
If my understanding is correct, you get that executed contract within 48 hours after it's executed. You deposit, you hold that earnest money in escrow, and then you're working with everybody. Can you go into a little more detail? What do you have to do with the homeowners association? What's your role in that?
Well, we want to contact them immediately because the contract normally has a date in it of a certain number of days that the seller has to provide that homeowners association declarations and covenants to the buyer.
Right.
So we want to meet that for the seller. So we normally order a check from our corporate office that comes in, and then we deliver that to the homeowners association so that we can get that documentation to the buyer within that time period listed in the contract.
Okay, great.
To be compliant for the seller.
So you send out those covenants and restrictions to the buyer?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. Okay. And then as far as the coordination you do with the mortgage company, can you go into a little more detail on that? I know you talk to mortgage companies a lot. What goes on there?
Well, when we first received the contract, we turned it into our abstract plan, and that's who does the title examination.
Okay.
When they provide us with that title work, then we're in a position to issue a commitment for title insurance to the lender. And that shows them what we're willing to commit and issue a policy to them.
Right.
Based on who owns the property and the exact legal description of the property, any exceptions, which we all have because we all have easements,
Right.
or any restrictions that affect that property or homeowners association.
Okay.
Once the lender receives that, then they're in a position to submit that with their loan package.
Okay.
So they have to have that first. The lender will then also let us know, or the contract terms let us know, that we need to coordinate getting a survey done of the property.
Right.
So we provide that information, our title work, also to the surveyor because they use our title commitment and whatever easements are affecting the property to actually prepare the survey.
Okay, so they find out about the easements, like the utility easements and everything, from the title company.
Yes, they do.
Okay, and then if, say, a seller provides a survey, you guys can provide them with an affidavit and notarize that for them, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, because a lot of times nowadays we have to do all that fun stuff. Things keep changing.
And we also check those surveys too. If the survey comes in from a seller, we want to make sure that we check it with the title work and make sure that all the easements are in fact on that survey to protect your buyer.
Okay, great. Now you mentioned title insurance. A lot of people, as far as the seller knows, generally they have to pay for it.
Correct.
And what exactly is it? What does that do for the seller or for the buyer?
Well, title insurance protects the buyer.
Okay.
And it's a one-time charge that is paid for by the seller normally, like you said, at closing. And it's ensuring to the buyer principally that they're the new owners of the property, that the only lien affecting the property is any that they have just created
Right.
to purchase it. And it also shows that there's no delinquent taxes.
Okay.
A title insurance is also going to cover any exceptions to the property for easements or restrictions.
Right. Does it guarantee the survey too, like for encroachments?
It's actually insurance, not a guarantee.
Okay.
But it does cover, and they can get a certain coverage that we offer them when we
Right.
send them out the title commitment, where we do insure the survey to the new buyer subject to shortages in area.
Okay, gotcha. All right. And is title insurance, is that required in the state of Texas if the buyer doesn't care for it and if the seller doesn't want to give it? Is it required in the state of Texas?
It's not necessarily, except for the fact that a lender requires title coverage on any loan they make.
Okay.
So if a seller pays for the title insurance policy, the buyer gets the mortgagee coverage that they have to provide their lender at a much reduced cost.
Right.
So it's to the benefit of the buyer to get that coverage, number one, to protect them,
Mm-hmm.
and because there's probably their biggest single investment,
Right.
because they're going to have to provide it to their lender anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If the seller doesn't provide them coverage or the buyer doesn't choose that coverage, then they have to pay based on their loan amount.
Okay.
The premium would be a lot more. So they would always want to get title insurance in Texas.
Okay, and a lot of times on that settlement statement, on the title insurance line, you've got the seller's column and the buyer's column.
Yes.
A lot of times there's a lot of confusion in closings because they said, well, we negotiated the seller to pay this title
Yes,
insurance,
it
and
is.
there's a charge on the buyer side too. Could you explain that?
And we do get that question a whole lot. Because the portion that's charged on the buyer side is what the lender is requiring.
Okay.
And the lender is requiring a mortgagee title policy, and what that does is ensure that the lender has a valid first lien.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way they're going to make a loan on real estate in Texas, is to have that coverage provided by the buyer. And that amount varies a little bit because the lender, depending on the type of loan or the type of lender, will require endorsements.
Right.
So that's an additional charge to the mortgagee coverage.
Okay. And the mortgagee is the buyer.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Well, is there any last words or anything you'd like to go over about title companies or title insurance that we might not have gone over?
Well, I think just enjoy the process. It doesn't have to be stressful. You've hired professionals
Right.
that can take care of all those details for you and let you know. It's always good if someone's asking you whether you're a realtor, your lender, or your title company, try to get that to them because we're all working on certain deadlines.
Right.
And it helps the process and get your closing done on time.
Right.
But just enjoy the process because you've hired good, dependable professionals to handle those aspects of it.
Right, I understand. And the buyer or seller is welcome to call the title company at any point, right?
Any point.
Okay,
And
great.
one other last thing on title insurance is just a one-time charge. As long as the buyer owns the property, that's the only coverage. It's not anything that has to be renewed.
Okay, great.
If they should ever refinance, they're going to get a discount on that policy depending on how fast they refinance the loan.
Okay.
And title insurance covers your seller for 25 years after they sell the property. So they want to always keep that title policy.
Right, okay. So be sure to keep their closing documentation
Yes.
for sure. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for meeting with me, Kathy.
I
Really
really-
appreciate it.
Thank you.